Blog Talk Radio.
There is a mystery lurking the forested areas of the world. Many have seen something, but what is it? Are they seeing known animals? They claim they walk upright, like a human. There are so many eyewitnesses. Can they all be wrong? Is someone just playing a trick on people? Or is it possible a large bipedal being could exist in the forests of the world? You have a decision to make. Do you believe it exists? These are the topics we discuss on Sasquatch Watch Radio. All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is May 28th, 2013. It's great to be here this evening, and let me welcome my co-host, the Creature Seeker. How you doing tonight there, Creature?
Hey, Billy, what's going on?
Oh, just another day. Just got through some storms here in Virginia. How about you?
Yeah, we had a pretty bad weekend altogether. It was raining pretty hard, and it was pretty cold. We got some snow up in the higher elevations.
Oh, wow. You can keep that up there.
Yeah,
I don't need that.
Yeah, trust me, it wasn't a welcome sight for me either, okay?
Sure it was. Well, we got a great guest with us tonight. Real good friend of mine, real good friend of Bruce's. I guess he's still a friend of Bruce's. You know, you never know.
Billy. I'm on the fence still about that.
Did he bring any extra crispy?
Everybody welcome Larry Battson, wildlife educator from Indiana. How you doing tonight, Larry?
Well, we're doing very well. It's been an absolutely gorgeous day here in western Indiana. A temperature of 75 degrees, 60% humidity. And I enjoyed my day by wheelbarrowing loads of gravel to my tiger enclosures.
There you go. I thought you was getting ready to say you was pushing wheelbarrows of manure around.
I've done that too. Today
sure
wasn't that day.
I'm sure you have plenty of your share in that.
You know, I have it for sale if anyone's interested. You can put tiger dung in your gardens, and there's not a deer that will get within 20 miles of your garden with the tiger dung in it.
There you go. There you go, Bruce.
That's okay. I don't go near your garden anyway, Billy. I'm a meatitarian.
Yes, it's pathetic. He'll be like John Wayne one day. They'll haul out 30 pounds of undigested meat from his bowel.
I'm going for 50, Larry.
Okay.
You're drawing in close there, Bruce.
Yeah, I am.
Well, Larry, it's great to have you on the show. Funny thing is, when folks found out you were coming on the show, I already have had some messages come in of questions that they want to ask you. So, let me see if I can find
Well, I haven't done any I haven't done any of these shows for quite some time. Of course, we have our own show, Larry Battson's Wild World, on Blog Talk on Thursday nights at 10 p.m.
Yep.
But I've been having, to tell you the truth, more rock and roll people on, and scientists. I haven't gotten to the Bigfoot too much lately, but who knows what the future may hold.
Yeah, I know you've had some pretty good folks on your show. I know I've helped you with the show a couple times, and you've had some pretty famous folks on there.
We have, and for the people that are into the classic rock, of course, old people like myself, we've had Al Jardine from the Beach Boys, Dave Davies from the Kinks, Billy Caldwell from Johnny Winter Band, and Captain Beyond, which was a favorite in that era. Tim Bogert from Beck, Bogert, and Appice, and of course Vanilla Fudge. Chris France, they were drummer for the band Talking Heads. So we've been rather fortunate. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's always fun helping you with the show.
Well, you do a great job, Billy.
Pretty good, actually.
Yeah,
you do a great job, Billy. We always appreciate your assistance.
I appreciate it. One of these days, I'm gonna have to get that nice professional sound on this show.
Well,
so
I know the first thing you could do.
What's that?
Get rid of Bruce.
I knew that was coming.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. That's the barbecue chips talking.
Oh, boy.
No, I didn't mean that. You have a great show, Billy. We love you like a brother.
Oh, man. Well, Kite Squatch is Alan. He was the one that sent me a question. He apparently heard you talking about this one day a few years ago, and I guess it's been bugging him to ask this question.
Okay.
But he said on an internet radio show a few years ago, Larry Battson had mentioned an incident when he was trying to feed one of his tigers in his compound, but the big cat did not come out to get the food as it normally would. Instead, it was cowering in the back of the cage, looking at something off in the woods. What I wanted to know was, has a similar event or events happened since then, and was he ever able to determine what the tiger was looking at?
Well, it has not happened recently. I am still not certain what the tiger was looking at. But for the people that didn't hear the broadcast, earlier that day we were working on a bear enclosure, and I had a couple buddies in from the Florida Everglades that you watch swamp people. That's what they do. And all they said after I'd gotten back from picking up some tiger meat that something big was moving through a ravine, and they had no idea what it was. And that evening when I went to feed my cats, at that time I had Louie. He was a Siberian tiger that weighed well over 600 pounds. And when you brought that bucket of meat up to the gate, he was like he had to make a kill. So I'd have to move him from one side before I could even attempt to go into his enclosure. And that particular night, he didn't come up. He didn't charge the gate. He didn't charge the cage. And I was first thought, oh, my God, he's gotten out. But when I looked down through the enclosure, there he was. It was like one of those concrete statues, and he was completely focused on something in the woods. And I looked down my other cats, because I have 6 tigers, and they were all focused to something in the woods. And they get pretty used to seeing deer. And I still kick myself for not going back in that area and seeing what they were looking at. But I decided that if it was a Squatch, Bigfoot, that it would have taken off as soon as I would have entered that wood. So I still would not have discovered what was the reason those cats were so focused.
Yeah.
But it was interesting.
Now, being where you're at out there, Larry, because I know you're in a pretty nice country area there. Do you ever hear anything that you contribute to possible Sasquatch vocals?
Well, the reason I bought this particular piece of property was it was a perfect location for our work, our animal lecture work, and keeping wild animals because it's so secluded. But there had been a sighting within, 100 yards of my house in the late 80s, and what it entailed was 3 people went squirrel hunting, Dad, his son, and a friend of his son. And about daybreak, the boy, the son, he had heard something come up over the ridge. He thought at first it was probably the biggest deer in Putnam County, the way it sounded. And the son was just starting to rise a little bit. He kind of crawled up on his belly up over the rise to see if he could see that buck, because deer hunting season was just around the corner. And if he saw what he thought he'd heard, then he was going to set his deer stand there. But when he looked across that valley, he saw something that stood erect, about 8 feet tall, covered with black hair. He raised his rifle and took a step toward it, and this thing took a step toward him. And that moment of hesitation, as the boy basically, his knees turned to jelly, and he became part of the earth. This thing took off through the woods screaming. And I asked him how fast it ran. He says it ran as fast as any deer. The only thing is that the smaller trees it just ran over. And it was also screaming at the same time. And his father had heard the screams. And his friend, who was in another area within eyesight of what was going on, saw this thing as well. And he flat just picked up his gun and ran home, which is about 3 miles. So when Dad had gotten over to the boy that made the initial sighting, and they were concerned about his friend, after a couple of phone calls, they realized that his friend had ran to his house. Well, the next call they made to was a conservation officer, and when he arrived, he was going to go back in the woods to maybe find any evidence of what they had seen, and Dad and the boy told him that, the boy did essentially, that pistol that he had on his hip wasn't a big enough piece of weaponry, and that he needed to get a bigger gun or they wouldn't go back there with him. And the conservation officer, unofficially, but he told me he found a footprint over 16 inches long. So after I'd heard that story and this property in Putnam County was available, I thought, this is where I want to live. Because people will ask me, are you hunting? And I still believe if you're looking for it, you're not going to find it. So I could be taking out my trash one night or just doing whatever and actually walk into one. My wife would kill me, but she's had 2 sightings on this property.
Yeah, your wife, I think your wife is similar to mine. She doesn't care about discussing the subject.
No, she's pretty fed up with it. And we call her the bipedal Wolverine. So we just, I can get that look in her eye, and I just stay clear. Bigfoot's not one of her favorite subjects, let's put it that way.
And I'm sure you're somewhere right now where the door is shut.
How did you know? I am. I'm in my office, the door's closed. I told her, of course, we're going to do the show because I don't do a lot of these programs, but for my friend Billy Willard and Bruce, hey, no problem.
See, I knew we were special, Bruce.
That's right.
I knew we were special, too, the way he tried to wrap that freaking python around my neck.
Oh, the folks may not have heard about that. What a time that was. That was historical. We had Bob Gimlin, Jeff Thomas, Steve Calls, Billy Willard, Bruce Harrington, Melissa Hovey, Wayne Larson were all in my cabin, and we did a private reptile show. And one of the things that I tried to persuade everyone, because I try to be an educator, teach people not to be afraid of these things. But I tried my darndest, and I still couldn't get Bruce to put that python around his neck for a photograph.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Billy, and you were there. Larry's got these animals. So first of all, I don't know what he's thinking because he brought these animals for the kids, and I'm thinking, out of all the animals he could have brought, like little bunny rabbits or like fox puppies or whatever, he decides, I'm going to bring a tarantula with 1-inch fangs, the most poisonous lizard in North America, a 12-foot reticulated python. I mean, what could go wrong there, right? So, and then he says, hey, Bruce, put, what's a tarantula crawl up your arm? Well, you know what, Larry? I don't want a tarantula with 1-inch fangs crawling up my arm. Oh, here, coil this python around your neck. Yeah, I'm not into that. I'm sorry. That's, and then Larry makes you feel bad. Oh, that's unreasonable, Bruce. Everyone else does it.
That's right.
I mean, just go on YouTube and Google animal attacks and see how things go wrong.
Well, you know what I've done at schools when I've gotten a 5th or 6th grade boy up there, and he decided that he doesn't want to participate in helping me with the python. I tell that boy, I says, I will pick a girl, and it will be like in the 1st or 2nd grade, and it's going to ruin your life. And sure enough, they'll chicken out. And I do that absolutely. I'll pick a little girl to do it that'll do it with great bravado, and that boy's credibility in that school is instantly gone. He will never ever bully another student. Animals are the equalizers.
Well, Larry, you really need to sedate that alligator that you bring, because that thing was flipping out. He was thrashing all over. He was snapping at everything. I actually put my hand on my knife at one point because I was so concerned.
Oh, my God. The alligator, folks, wasn't even a foot long.
I don't know. That part's really going crazy.
Some parts of Louisiana, they use it as bait.
It might as well have been 8 feet long to Bruce.
You should have participated, though, Bruce. We would have had some great photographs.
Yeah. I took some video. Of that Gila monster that you had, and the snake, and the tarantula.
Well, I will tell you, the entire event in the Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Expo was well documented on Facebook. Every part of that program, I think there were pictures taken, and they've been posted. So it was a historical weekend, and man, I'll tell you what, we've got so much positive comments from it.
Yeah, it was fun. Now what I'd like you to do is tell everybody the story that you told us about that friend of yours over there that was over there in Yellowstone.
Oh, Bob Jackson.
Yes.
Well, Bob Jackson was for 31 years probably the most, he's a legend in Yellowstone National Park. And for 31 years, he patrolled the most remote area of Yellowstone, which is known as the Thoroughfare District, hunting poachers by himself, people with guns. And what these people were doing was they were making big elk kills. They weren't taking out the carcasses, just the heads and antlers. And they were basically creating these giant grizzly bear baits, which is highly illegal. Because when you kill an animal like that, you're expected to take out the entire animal and not create a bait for grizzly bears. In other words, grizzly bear cubs were learning when they heard a gunshot, it's time to go eat. And anytime you get grizzlies with people, it just 99% of the time doesn't work out. But Bob Jackson, he had talked to several people in the trail crews, and they had found unusual things such as a carcass of an elk completely deboned with large footprints all around it in the dirt or mud. He talked about being with a guide, and they heard a sound come out of the mountains that he described as 1,000 elk going to their death. It was a scream that could not be associated with any known animal of Yellowstone. And one day while on patrol, he had his horse, his pack horse, and they were just not cooperating. And he could tell by the flared nostrils and how the eyes get bigger that there must have been a grizzly bear in the area, which is, besides dealing with poachers, was one of Bob Jackson's nemesis. Though he wants to preserve the grizzly bear in Yellowstone, he realizes on its own turf it is the boss, and he's had several incidents, whether it was life or death with those animals. Well, he realized that it wasn't a grizzly bear because this deer that he was watching down this willow grove was just as calm as can be. So apparently if a grizzly would have been in the area, that deer would have been out of there. And then he said this deer bolted out of this willow grove as fast as it could go. And all of a sudden, right after, it was a bipedal animal covered with black hair. He guesstimates about 6.5 feet tall, and he watched it stalk that deer for some time. And he's absolutely certain that he saw a Sasquatch, and he does not care if anyone believes him. In fact, this just to show you the credentials of this man, friends of Dick Cheney were arrested by him because they were not following the rules of elk hunting in Yellowstone, on the boundaries of Yellowstone. And he was going to just nail them down. He was going to show no mercy. He was asked by the administration to lighten up on these guys. He would not do it. And literally for over a year, his life was just hell from the harassment from the government. So they finally sent him a letter of apology, and he went to Washington, D.C., and was also presented a special letter for the fine work he did at Yellowstone. So you're talking about a very credible witness that has seen these things. And as in his own words, he said these are very rare animals. He said they need to be studied, but they also need to be left alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love hearing, real good, reputable people such as him, talk about these sightings, because it just kind of drives home the point that, it's just not your, what you consider your everyday person seeing a creature. You got some pretty reputable people and people who know the forest and what's in it. And,
well, as you know, there's been several law enforcement officers that have made reports. There's been video shot of these things from their cameras that they have on their patrol cars.
Yep.
And I think the first one, John Green interviewed, his last name was Harrington. Gosh, I can't think of his first name. And he was quite descriptive and precise on what he had seen. This happened in the state of Washington. I'm still amazed that I'm not amazed that there hasn't been an official scientific discovery, but I'm amazed at the people that think it's all a bunch of horse dung. That if you spend any time on the subject, if you do any research, which I did several years ago, I realized that we coexist with another bipedal animal on this planet that chooses to be much more reclusive than we are. People ask how intelligent. I'll tell you, for what they do, where they live, essentially they walk into the woods and survive on all their own instincts and faculties, using their strength, their intelligence. That this is probably the most amazing animal we have on this planet. And the chances of studying it are so remote because they're so reclusive and so rare. You watch the Finding Bigfoot show each week. Every week, I don't care where they go, there's a squatch in them woods. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Not that easy.
I wish.
Monster Quest, we filmed an episode with Monster Quest 3 or 4 years ago when they were in their prime. And they were here at my compound. And the first comment I had to them, I said, you don't think in any way possible that we're going to film one of these things with 3 camera guys, a sound guy, a catering truck, a cam tracker on every tree, walkie-talkies going constantly. Are you kidding me? It's not going to happen.
No.
I could put the same crew in the woods or the mountains where mountain lions exist, and those guys would come out with a photograph or film of a mountain lion. And we know they exist.
Right.
So it's just, people have no clue. And like my wife has said, if you're looking for it, you're not going to find it.
So you've been a wildlife educator because you started your wildlife company, what, in 79, is that right?
It's 78, 79, yeah.
Yeah. And you've been, just so everybody has a little bit of background, you've been on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. You've went to, God, I don't know how many schools and educated children on animals. So all the knowledge that you've amassed over all the different types of species of animals and things through your life, what is your personal opinion or your educated opinion as to what Bigfoot is?
Well, it's not a big monkey, or we'd have one. It's not a big ape. I think Bill Munns had the greatest description. That's very close to Neanderthal, prehistoric man, and it's managed to coexist and basically be our neighbors. And I will tell you, I've talked to some of the roughest, toughest back country hunters and that have encounters with these things. They're done. They don't go in the woods anymore. I mean, they've looked it right in the face. In fact, when I'm doing, usually if I do a program, I do the New York Bigfoot Expo because Peter is such a great friend of mine. But usually when I do a program, I do it in libraries, more educated type surroundings. And when I have someone come up to me after the lecture and say, well, if I saw one, I'd track it. And I tell them, I said, it's easy to say in this well-lit library with all these people. But if you're out in the woods and one decides to walk up on you and give you the stare down and then walk off, not run, it will walk off away because it realizes you're just a speck of nothing, that you're not going to track it. I guarantee that. It's not going to happen.
Now, have you I think some years back, I think you did a presentation, I believe in West Virginia, for the wildlife game, right?
It was for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Okay.
And that was the first time they've ever hosted any presentation on the subject. And it turned out to be their best receptive program they'd ever had. They've had some Jane Goodall and you name it.
Yeah.
And right after I'd done that presentation, I got emails and calls from rangers, trail people, naturalists all over the country that are employed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, because not only did I do the lecture at the National Conservation Training Center in Shepherdstown, but I also did a television broadcast over their network, which basically has about 1,500 outlets. And it was kind of funny because I was there a couple months ago to speak to a group of high school students on endangered species for them. And I walked in my hotel room on the grounds, and there was that television show that I'd done still playing. I said, I could not believe it. But they said that of all the things that they've ever had there, that was the most anticipated. We had people come 500 miles to see that.
Yeah.
It was pretty extraordinary. Then we had a couple fellows come from Florida, and they had brought some casts of some tracks that were like lizard-like. You could actually see the lizard scales. And when I got one of the guys from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to check them out, he just shook his head. He goes, I don't know what to tell them. My gosh. He was completely blown away. I can't repeat what he exactly said, but this is blank up. That's if it gives you any clue.
Now, Digger Dog in our chat room asked the question. He remembers you saying that you're not going to track it. So what he wants to know is, do you think they hide their tracks?
No, they don't hide their tracks. But they have to come to you. You're not going to track them. For one reason, they move too quickly. Second reason, they know you are tracking them, so they're going to double back on you and they could totally intimidate you, and your butt will be out of those woods within the hour. If they got their sights on you, you're done. I mean, you will be completely intimidated. You will come out of the woods thinking to yourself, why did I leave? And that's going to bug you for weeks to come. That's part of their power.
Been there, done that, Larry. I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, they're going to get. You're going to leave.
Yeah, I've kicked myself several times. Like, why did I do that?
Well, here I go. My wife is going to be so mad. She used to have one of those old Toyota Land Cruisers, the classics of the 70s. Nothing like the one they sell now. And they were down in the infamous Morgan Monroe State Forest, and they got hung up. And they could hear these voices back in the woods, but they couldn't understand what they were saying. They kept going, hey, hey, hey. And, with basically no response, and they kept hearing this chatter sound. Well, basically what she was trying to do is to bounce the front bumper off of a tree so she could back it out of there.
Right.
Well, she said her and two of her girlfriends were sitting in that Land Cruiser, and she bumped off that tree, and all of a sudden it felt like something just grabbed the rear end of that truck and just pulled it right out of that ditch. They put it in first gear. They went out onto the main road, and they didn't say a word to one another until they got home to Indianapolis in about an hour. And to this day, they still can't figure out why they left. But she said it felt like something jerked them right out of that ditch. So,
yeah. Bruce,
wasn't me.
Bruce, you're awful quiet over there. Are you eating a ribeye or something, or like a porterhouse, or?
No, he's having a drumstick.
Drumstick.
Colonel.
No, actually, I was finishing up my moose tracks ice cream.
Oh, I see.
Plus, I was answering some questions in the chat room there. They seem to be preoccupied with my tent for some reason.
You talking about the one that's 2 stories and has the escalator inside?
It's not 2 stories. I don't know why everyone exaggerates so much. My tent is just a small, it's a small, just regular tent. It barely sleeps like 12 people.
You know why they exaggerate?
Why?
Because it's your tent.
Of course.
There's a lot to work with there.
Larry,
he's got emergency power, Larry, that would probably power your entire compound out there.
Oh, I'd be embarrassed.
Yeah, I don't think so, Billy.
I'd be so embarrassed.
Larry, tell us about the story about the half-man, half-horse thing.
Oh, that's awfully far in left field.
Oh, we're talking about exaggeration.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I had a good friend. Still have a good friend. Maybe after tonight that'll end. Lives in Conneaut, Ohio. And he had several encounters. In fact, he had written a journal on which I have a copy of, which someday could be a book, someday it could be a movie. And after all this stuff had gone on for years and years and years, he'd finally just resigned himself that no one's going to believe him. He'd do his own research, but as far as sharing it with anyone else, that was over. Well, one night he sees this shadow move by his garage. This were his exact words. And he says, "Oh, there it is." And he's basically waiting for it to walk out into the light. Well, what walked out into the light was half man and half horse, and it was the ugliest man he'd ever seen. He said this thing looked at him, kind of sneered, and then galloped away. That was the only time he saw it, but he said all summer, he said they found these giant horse prints all over his woods. So I'm just relaying what he had told to me, whether it's, as he put it, that particular summer they were having so much Bigfoot activity, and this thing came down, that it was a regular freak show around his house.
Yeah, no kidding. That's what Bruce said he'd like to run into in the woods.
A freak show?
No, I don't want to run into that. I don't even want to see that when I'm in the woods. Right?
Yeah, that's mind blowing, I'll tell you. And he was so truthful. In fact, I knew him for so long before he said, I've got one for you. And I told him, I said, wow. But he has not relayed that story to too many folks, if any, that I know of.
I don't know. That's a little freaky. I don't know. I think I'd rather see Bigfoot, but.
And that was in Ohio?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it figures.
Well, I look at it does figure, doesn't it, Bruce? You're absolutely right. Well, you want to know something freaky? I was looking out our back window the other day, and our tiger was totally focused on something. So I walked through the house and looked out the front yard, and we actually did have a horse in our yard. And we didn't know who the owner was, so for all day I was babysitting his horse till we could figure out who owned it and where it got away. So, that's a regular boring story. I apologize. just edit out that last 3 minutes if you can.
Oh man. So what are some of you've told us so many things. We've went out. You, I, and Bruce have went out, and the first New York event that we did, we went out in the woods, and I mean we told stories all night sitting out there in the woods. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that you told us, because you've run into a lot of interesting people and had a lot of good stories.
Hey, Billy, how about the one where Larry told us about that guy who was like this Bigfoot hunter, and then he heard a Bigfoot, and then came crawling back on his hands and knees?
Oh, that happened to my friend who lives in Conneaut, and he got a call one night when it first started happening. See, he made the mistake. He called the local newspaper and the TV, and oh my gosh, it all came down on him. His neighbors hated him after that. All this extra excitement going on in their area. I mean, this is a very remote area. People want to be left alone. So he gets a call one night, and the fellow was from Saskatchewan. And he says, I hunt the Bigfoot. I will come to your home and hunt the Bigfoot. So my friend goes, well, come on. He says, you can hunt him all you want. So he shows up, and he's about 6'6". He's not pretty. In fact, he looked like a shaved Bigfoot. And had a big bowie knife on his side, all camouflage, some outrageous-looking hat. And he was asking my friend where. He says, all you have to do is just head out my back door, cross that cattle fence. You're heading into Jumbo Woods. You're going to be right amongst them, I guarantee you. So he took off about 11 o'clock after it got good and dark, and he, by himself, which my friend just shook his head and thought, oh, my Lord. And about the first few steps he'd taken over that cattle fence, he walked basically right into one, and it screamed right in his face. And my friend's sitting there on the porch, and he's hearing all this commotion. Then he hears this bang as the guy's stumbling over the cattle fence. He's basically crawling on his hands and knees back to my friend's house. And he couldn't even hold a cup of coffee for 2 hours. He was so shaken up. And the next morning, he's getting on a plane back to Saskatchewan. And his last words to my friend was, you got big trouble. You have a Sasquatch. He said, and my friend said, well, no kidding, Sherlock. And he was absolutely no help whatsoever. He looked like he should be able to hunt a Bigfoot, but when the reality set in, things changed dramatically.
I would say.
Yeah.
Now, is there? Do you get a lot of reports in and around Indiana there where you're at?
I get calls frequently. I get calls basically, like most people that are researching this, photographs of tracks. I did have a sighting right before last year's New York Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Conference. I had a lady call me, and she said, well, first of all, she says, my daughter, and she went through her resume. She was a all-star high school basketball player. She was in the honor roll. And usually when I get a call like that, I'm expecting them to ask, can we volunteer to help around the animals?
All right.
So that's what I was waiting for. Then she told me about her son, who's an airline mechanic, and his credentials, and they both sound really credible. Excuse me, and they'd been to a Pacer game, Indiana Pacer basketball game. It's the playoffs last year, and they were going home. And they're driving down this gravel road heading to their house, and all of a sudden it looks up ahead. They thought a big cow was going to cross the road. You know, that sort of thing happens out here. I once had to corral 6 cows for a guy. And so they slowed down a little bit. Well, it wasn't. And they said it stood erect, and the headlights, its eyes glowed yellow. And he said it just stood there and just stared at him as they were kind of just coasting by it. Well, the boy who was driving, he hit the accelerator and had that car going sideways, spitting gravel. The young lady was just screaming. We found out later she urinated herself. The boy, he just kept saying, "Oh, we didn't see that, we didn't see that." So I got that phone call, and when I told the mother, I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to go to New York. My advice to you is don't tell anyone what had happened and what they had seen. Wait till I get back." I said, "I'm a graphic illustrator, and we'll prepare a drawing of what they saw. Then we'll just take it from there." Well, I got back from New York, and about a week after that, I called them. They took my advice to heed because the gentleman that picked up didn't know what I was talking about, had no interest in returning my call, and I hung up the phone. I thought, well, they've really done themselves a favor because I've totally decided that there's somebody somewhere, more than one person, who has worked their entire life for that special summer home in some wooded area that they can spend their last years, and they have seen these things. They have videotaped them, but they're not going to tell anyone because they don't want to ruin what they have now. Yeah. Because, you know, if someone showed up with a film, that every nutty Bigfoot researcher in North America would be out their back door.
Yep.
And they don't, you know, there's people that don't want to do that. I've met several people that realize what the consequences would be, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really tell too many people about the things that go around my house.
Right.
But for that main reason.
You know, the problem is we have so many nutty ones out there that want to, you know, want to kill them. Yeah, that's all they think about. You know, they want that body, because it's what everybody says. It's going to take a body.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I wouldn't want to kill one, Billy. Maybe just wing it. Maybe just wing it.
Wing it?
Yeah.
How good would that do?
Well, I'll tell you what, he would wing me right back.
Hate you more.
He would just wing Bruce back. That's what would happen.
He'd chase you down and put that gun where the sun don't shine. Now that's the video I want to see. That'd be better than the Patterson film.
That would be the proof.
Bruce Harrington, I can see the headlines. Receives enema from Bigfoot with rifle.
Okay, you know what? I don't know. I don't like where this conversation's going.
I can see it now.
You definitely need more than your KFC bucket of chicken to help you. So.
Well, you know, we make a joke about that because when we were in New York, that's what one gentleman told us what you used to attract them.
Yeah.
I'm turning around and looking at him. I'm thinking, how many KFC outlets are there in the middle of the woods that these things would have developed an appetite for Kentucky Fried Chicken? I mean, come on.
I know, but you know, Larry, those eyewitnesses who came forth, what's the one thing they had in common? They all had fried chicken. It's true. That sounds crazy, but they all reported it.
Do you know that I am still catching slack from my wife because some wacky Native American told me to take butternut bars and put them in a sack and hang them from a tree, that will attract them. My wife looked at me and said, "You spent $1.50 on candy bars and hung them from trees. Yeah. How stupid are you? That's one of the reasons she hates. She doesn't actually hate the Bigfoot. She hates the aura around it, what it creates.
They definitely make you do things that you wouldn't normally do. That's for sure. Like hanging, like hanging gorilla urine and stuff on these chips up in the trees.
Hey, what about Mike Killen? He was trying to hang those wall sconces up in the woods. Remember that?
Yeah.
The wind chimes.
Yeah. I think one of the worst things I've ever heard hung from the woods and guys waiting for an encounter was their wives used tampons.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. That's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Let me ask y'all something. How would you write up a research paper on that?
I wouldn't. I just wad it in the ball and throw it away, not tell anybody.
Well, what if you got the absolute proof?
So it showed up?
I don't know about the research paper, but I would love to be on the peer review for that.
Oh, gosh. I'm telling you. That would be.
Wow.
I haven't tried that yet. That definitely would. My wife would kill me. She'd think I'd lost a loop.
Yeah,
which I have. But
I can see Larry going in there and asking her right now. As a matter of fact,
no, you couldn't.
We would never hear from Larry again. As a matter of fact.
Oh, she's threatened that. She said, "I'll feed you these tigers. You'll never know what happened."
We have a question for Larry in the chat room. This person's asking, what part of Indiana are you from, Larry?
West Central.
West Central. Okay.
Yeah, not too far from McCormick's Creek or Turkey Run State Park. See, from my home, I only have, as I look to the west to Raccoon Lake, which is a big reservoir we have there, there's only like 2 roads that you would cross. I mean, straight. It's wild. I mean, there's Farmer's Field and woods. Farmer's Field and woods. Once the sun has gone down, these things are invisible. That's what's so dumb about the Finding Bigfoot show. They go hunt them at night. They don't have a chance. And when were the best films taken? You know, the Patterson-Gimlin film, Broad Daylight. The one Steve Calls came up with, The Baby Monkey in a Tree, which we're still debating about. You know, night research, you're giving the animal all the advantage. You have none.
Right.
And they are active in the daytime. But the thing about it is now they've got the advantage because the leaves are back. In the wintertime, they're a little more wary because they're kind of like sitting out in the open most of the time. But now, man, I tell you what, they could walk within 20 foot of you and you never know it.
Yep. That's for sure.
No, unless you had Bruce Harrington and a bucket of fried chicken. And then they might decide to come over and mingle.
Hey Bruce, is that question from Crystal? Is that to Larry, I assume, or?
There was, I think it was Donna.
Oh, that was to Donna.
Yeah, no, it's from Donna.
Oh, it's from Donna, because I didn't know she was wanting us to ask Larry that question, or if that was something else that was being discussed in there. I just happened to look up and see it. So, Larry, I know you stay busy with the wildlife education stuff and like that, but do you ever actually go out yourself and just do research, or do you just kind of sit? Because I know you're in a good area. You probably kind of wait to see or hear something come to you.
Oh, right. Yeah, like I've told people, I could be taking out my trash one night and walk into one. And like I've always said, if you're looking for it, you're not going to find it. Which doesn't mean you won't find things like footprints or hair samples. In fact, right now I'm trying to plan a couple of guided trips into Morgan Monroe State Forest with my good friend Dave Griffin, who was on Monster Quest. And between him and I, we know that forest better than anyone. And there's been numerous sightings and reports. Dave's had 2 or 3. I've had some pretty close deals go on. So we were going to anticipate maybe this summer, June or July, to put some small groups together. No weapons. Camera equipment's all right. But nothing that could potentially, because they can smell. And Steve Coles debated this with me. They can smell gunpowder.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't sure their sense of smell was that great. I'm telling you, hearing, sight, and smell is superior on these things. Absolutely superior. And you do not walk into the forest. If they're in the vicinity, you will not take one step into the forest where they will not know you are there. And once they know you are there, you don't have a chance.
Now, what about the hunters that are in the tree stands that have weapons? Why is it that they have sightings?
Well, I think for one reason they're up in the air, which is kind of unpredictable for these things. And I had a hunter here in Indiana that was using distressed rabbit calls, and he was hunting coyotes. And he was up in his stand. This happened in Morgan Monroe, and one of these guys walked up to his stand, stared at him, made about 3 laps around his tree, and then walked off into the woods. And he didn't come out of his stand for like 8 hours. He was totally terrified. He was not coming down and walking through the woods by himself. Wasn't going to happen. So he waited like 8 hours up there in that tree. I wouldn't have. I'd have climbed down out of that tree, put the gun over my shoulder, and all the way out of the woods go, not interested. Not interested whatsoever.
All right, Bruce, you're too quiet tonight. This is unusual.
No, I like listening to Larry's stories. They're always a hoot.
Me and Larry know what's really going on. You're eating, so
yeah.
I finished a while ago, Billy.
Yeah, well, yeah, you finished your main course. That's about it.
Well, I've got that Indian bull roar, which is supposedly due from Native American legends, is an attractant for them. It's a piece of wood that you twirl over your head and makes this foot sound.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I've got to get a leather strap for it because now it just cuts your fingers to ribbons. But I'm going to get a leather strap for it, and it's going out in the woods with me. We're going to see what we can stir up. I had a Native American that was going to use one of those, and she was going to take. But she said that you'll be risking your life.
Really?
I said, how is that? She says, well, if you get between the male and the female, or the male and the baby, the male will grab you by your ankles and beat you up against a tree. Well, I'm thinking right there, that ain't no party.
Hey, Larry, you know what else you need to get?
What?
Bring some skill with that thing, because you almost put my eye out the last time you were demonstrating it.
Oh, I did. I know. Believe me, I'm going to practice.
You're twirling it around?
Yeah. I did almost nick you, didn't I?
Yeah.
Well, that's how we collect the DNA.
Yeah.
I'll hit that thing in the forehead of that thing, and then we'll have our DNA collected, and the mystery will be solved.
The problem is if you hit Bruce with it and nick it, and you do a DNA on that, it'll come back as Angus.
Yeah, really, ribeye porterhouse.
That was a good one.
For our audience, Bruce absolutely eats no vegetables. And it seems like with your heritage, that'd be about 80% of your diet.
Larry, it's like I said, I'm a meatitarian. It's a personal choice.
Yeah. Did anybody tell you it was a bad choice?
Yeah, you think it's a bad choice, but do you know how many people die from eating tainted spinach and all that other stuff? I mean, I like to think I'm avoiding.
Actually, no, I don't.
No, we have not a clue. We want you to go get a colonoscopy and save the video.
You're going to have to look it up, but there's that E. coli and people eating, very bad vegetables.
E. coli, that's from kids pooping in the pool.
Oh, my goodness.
They're having a big problem with that here.
What kind of pool you got, Larry?
No, like the public swimming pools.
Oh, you never go swimming in a public swimming pool, ever.
No, because it's full of E. coli.
It's like that's like swimming in a septic tank.
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to do what they did in that Caddyshack movie. You chuck a candy bar in there. You remember that scene?
Got a floater.
Yeah, where they had to suck it dry, and then Bill Murray picks up I found it, and takes a big bite out of it. And the old gal in charge of the country club faints. I mean, that was a moment of cinema there. They don't do stuff like that anymore.
No, they don't.
Which may be a good idea.
Hey, Bruce, I think Donna's got a question. You see it?
Can you please ask him if there are BF reports near Raccoon Lake?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All through this area, we've had reports and sightings. Glen Flint, Van Bibber. I'm telling you, I don't like to brag about it, but it's a bed of Bigfoot out here.
What, in Indiana?
Yeah.
I thought these Bigfoot were supposed to be intelligent. What are they doing in Indiana?
Well, they got the hell out of Ohio.
Yeah, too many centaurs running around in Ohio.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they got the heck out of there, boy. Buckeye State their butt. They want to be Hoosiers.
Well, Larry, let me know when you assemble this Squatch team. I'll go out there with you.
Oh, you will.
Oh yeah. But keep your alligators, snakes, and tarantulas in their cages.
Well, I do, Bruce. I'm licensed. I have to do this right. Believe me, they watch us very carefully. We've got 6 tigers and 2 full-grown black bears in this compound, 15-some alligators, half of them 6, 7, 8 feet long, rattlesnakes, tarantulas, and they all want you, Bruce. They all
Larry,
want you.
How are you going to outdo yourself next year, Larry? Are you going to bring, killer bees for the kids? How about a spitting cobra?
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. We'll do a snake handling class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be. I'll tell you, if we actually did do that, it would be standing room only. I used to do a rattlesnake. Well, I still can do it, but I've done this rattlesnake show for these outdoor shows where I actually build a desert inside and catch tarantulas and Gila monsters out of my man-made desert. And we'd have standing room only, like a half hour before the darn thing would even start.
Wow.
I think mainly people just wanted to see if I was going to die that show.
Larry, you ever put them against each other, see who would win, like the Gila monster or the rattlesnake?
No. The animals are much too valuable. The Gila monster alone is worth about $3,000 in the herpetology trade.
Wow.
No, I wouldn't do that. Though I did many years ago have a baby cobra, when I'm saying baby, about 2.5 feet, get out of an enclosure and went to one of the alligator bins, and basically the alligator bit the cobra bit the alligator, and they both died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before we go off live, we're going to continue a little bit here in the archive, but we want to thank everyone for coming live. We will see
you all already?
Next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Okay, yeah, we can keep going though.
Yeah, time flies. Doesn't it,
I'm
Larry?
telling you.
Yeah, it does. It flies.
You don't even play
does.
music.
No, I don't. We just keep on going. Hey, Alan was wanting to know if there's any sightings around Spring Mill State Park.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Very good area.
There you go. There you go, Alan. Yeah.
Should go camping there.
I guess we're
Larry,
going to have to take a trip.
Yeah. I mean, Larry he wants us to believe that there's Bigfoot around every corner out there in Indiana, Billy.
There pretty much are. Of course, some of these hillbillies get misidentified.
Well, I think I know what it is. How many KFCs are out there?
Not that many. That's why they're so hard to... We only have one in Greencastle. And they're not that good, so I think they've got onto that. You know, when the chicken's not only been cooked but killed, it's not good.
No, it's not.
It's like shoe leather. Cooked about a day too long.
Wow.
Bigfoot like their Kentucky Fried Chicken juicy.
And you know that on good authority, Larry?
That's one of my own analogies. One I kind of come up with myself. And how are you going to dispute that?
You can't. I'm not going to go on record disputing that.
Well, maybe someday I'll prove it.
Oh, gosh.
Seriously, though, I have to say I've been involved with this since I was 20 years old, 19 maybe. And it's still one of the most fascinating subjects. And my first few phone calls that I made when I was actually hired to put this exhibit together for the Cleveland Sports Show many years ago, my first call was to John Green. The second call I made was to Bob Titmus. And after my half-hour conversation with Bob Titmus, what before I was going to take on as a sarcastic kind of humorous exhibit, my whole life changed at that moment after talking to him and his two sightings that he had made. And when I got out in the world and, said, hey, I'm interested in it, tell me a story. Man alive, I've heard so much over the years. All very credible witnesses. Every once in a while I'll get one that's a little, I'm tending not to believe the person says, well, I've had 29 sightings. I'm thinking, yeah, right. Well, I'm not swallowing
29
that one.
sightings?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm not swallowing that because, they decide they just like you and they just show up on a daily basis. What's with that?
Yeah,
they don't like us. That's the truth.
You believe that there's a half man, half horse running around Ohio by 29 sightings? That's too fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm still, my brother-in-law used to break horses. I'm kind of wondering maybe that was him. And the lighting wasn't that good because he said he was awfully ugly. So it may have been my brother-in-law riding a horse bareback. I don't know. And I've always said too, if I see it walk off a spaceship, I'm done. I'm not interested in it anymore at all. I'm only interested.
There's quite a lot of stuff out on the internet about Bigfoot and spaceships. I don't know why, because I don't put the two together. But if you read a lot of, I talked to Brian and Terry, and they also have quite a number of sightings that they have compiled that involve people witnessing UFOs and stuff. I mean, what do you think of this? What do you make of it?
I think they're nuts. To quote Barney Fife. I don't think any of that though. I talked to a rancher in Montana and he talked about seeing stuff, space quote ships come out of the sky in the big country of Montana. He said, but who do you tell? It's there, it's gone. Who's going to believe you?
Right.
That's true with this. I mean, only lately because of the silly television shows, people kind of come out of the woodwork and said, well, I did have a sighting. And I can always tell when I'm doing a lecture who those people are. They're usually sitting about 2/3 of the way back. And they got an expression on their face like, what are you going to impress me with, buddy? And by the time the lecture's over, they're up there talking to me about it. So
yeah.
Not that I impress
Yeah,
them.
they're usually the ones that won't talk in public.
No.
But they'll come up to you and talk to you.
Well,
they sit there and they absorb everything you're saying, and then, like, they make sure they're going to talk to you before they leave.
Well, I had that happen. I was doing a lecture in Danville, Indiana, at the library, and a big fella came up to me, and he waited till about everybody had left. And he says, I'll tell you my story. He says, I was fly fishing in the state of Washington, and we were just getting ready to wade in this river for trout, and all of a sudden, literally, a rock looked like it was catapulted out of the woods. It had to weigh 300 pounds or more, landed in the middle of the river, and he saw it, and his buddy he was with saw it, and they basically just reeled in their rods, got in their cars, trucks, and left. And they didn't see anything except that rock come out of the woods.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
Oh, I know. I've had people that walked out of the woods that they just sensed they weren't alone, and they can't figure out why they did, but they left. They walked out of the woods. They wouldn't take another step farther.
Yeah.
I took a group of school teachers on a trip years ago, and the gist of it was I've always said that animals in the classroom are a great teaching tool because maybe you're not reaching that one youngster that's just not quite connecting, but if you've got a snake or a lizard or something that you say, hey, if you do really well in this reading test, you can help take care of this animal for a week. Well, these kids that maybe they didn't get much out of before, all of a sudden just lighten up. That's the key. So I was taking a group of teachers down southern Indiana, all ladies, by the way. It was a wonderful day. And one of the gals was doing a track study. She'd find a track, and she'd give me, Mr. Battson, what kind of track's that? I'd tell her possum, raccoon, skunk. And finally she said, Mr. Battson, what kind of track is this? And I walked over there, and there was about a 16, 17-inch track with the toes and everything. And I looked at it for a second, and I'm going, you're not going to believe me. I just walked away. No, she said, what is it? I said, you don't really want to know. Oh, no, I don't know. What is it? And I looked at it. I said, it's a Sasquatch. What? Bigfoot, Sasquatch, big hairy guy that lives in the woods. They're real? I go, well, there's the track. And we were in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I'd taken those ladies to a remote area. And it was kind of funny because the activities were supposed to go till 4 or 5 that afternoon. Well, by 12 noon, they'd all decided that they needed to get the hell out of there and go home and fix their husband's dinner. And all they saw was that silly track, and my analogy of it pretty much ruined the day for them. Those are real? Well, It's like I was doing a lecture in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with some rattlesnakes, and at that time I had a 6.5-foot timber rattlesnake. And the guy walks up after the lecture. He'd probably had him a couple extra blat spears, and he says, well, what kind of rattle was that? Diamondback? I said, no, sir, that was a timber rattlesnake. They don't get that big. Well, did you see that snake I had out here? They don't get that big. Okay. That's a diamondback. I go, no, sir, it's not. It's a timber rattlesnake. And he kept being so persistent and getting under my skin. I said, let's do this. Let's bet $1,000, and we'll find someone in a sports show, one of these outfitters or somebody that can identify the snake. And I'll tell you right now, sir, I won't take your check. And sure enough, I found a couple of good old boys from Alabama. I got the snake out, and he said, oh, yeah, that's a timber rattlesnake. Then the guy that kept calling it diamondback wanted to fight me. I said, just keep your $1,000. It was worth all this time for me to present you as an idiot as you are. So that was that. But
Well, we had a good time on the show tonight, Larry. We thank you for coming on. It was great.
Oh, anytime. I really enjoy talking to you, Billy. Bruce, I'm a little iffy on, but Billy, you're great.
Well, Bruce grows on you. You just got,
Like algae.
Larry has a way of just making people feel comfortable around him.
I've been told that. I've been told a lot of things, and that's all. No, usually my wife just says I'm a big butthead, but
you may be onto something, Larry.
She's very perceptive. We were in the middle of Colorado in the mountains, and we come across this big track. She says, I want to see a moose. I want to see a moose. So, okay, we're in the right spot. Let's walk around. Maybe we'll get a glance at one. And Rocky Mountain National Park, and all of a sudden we found the tracks of a moose, and she got to studying those tracks. She goes, well, they're a rather large animal. I go, yes, they are. She goes, what would happen if we ran into one? I said, well, if it's a bull, he'd probably just move that head down, and we'd get a full-fledged charge and hope that we can get up a tree fast enough. She decided at that moment she didn't really want to see a moose. It wasn't her priority anymore. But
so that explains it. Bruce was trying to kill me and Janine by going moose hunting up in Maine.
Oh yeah, well moose are not very smart, as Bruce probably knows.
No, they're not.
I talked to some guy when we were up in Ontario on a trip, and you'd see the big things where they hang the moose from these big logs to clean them. And most of the people that live up there, they'll be driving home, they'll see a moose alongside the road. Heck, they'll drive home, get them a sandwich, maybe a little roll in the hay with a wife, get their gun and go back, and that moose will still be standing there. And they'll shoot it. He said that's mostly how the hunting's done from the road, so. But no, they're not too smart.
Yeah.
No,
kind of like
they'll
my
stand right there,
brother-in-law.
and the problem with moose is that they're all legs, so when you hit them with your car, the body mass just shoots right over top of you.
Sure.
Takes anyone unfortunate enough to not duck will probably be dead.
Oh, I know it. Yeah, the way they're. My dad had a friend. He was in one of those station wagons with wood on the side. Remember those from years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the simulated wood panel.
He hit a buffalo in Grand Glacier. My God, I guess it's completely destroyed the car. So moose would be kind of the same category. Then if you struck a Bigfoot, then you got to deal with the government, because they decide if a body ever shows up that they're going to cordon off the area, call in the National Guard, and have an emergency act of Congress and make it an endangered species. So that's what they did. And that's in writing, by the way.
Where'd you see that, Larry?
They actually issued, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service actually issued a press release that's 3 days long. In fact, I have a copy of it. And when I went over there to do the speech, they unearthed that from their archives, and they had them printed out, and everyone that came to the lecture got a copy of that news release. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service released what they would do if a Sasquatch was killed, and they had the body.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
And the U.S. Army in their field guide, I believe it was 64, 65, there was a page devoted to the soldiers, what if you ran into a Sasquatch, and what you should do.
Yeah, I've heard that they have it in some type of guide. I've never seen it with my own eyes, but
I saw it. A friend of mine had it. I should have hit him in the head and stole it from him. But he just got back from Vietnam, and he was kind of a tough guy. So that wouldn't have been he'd been in heavy combat. He'd seen friends of his die, so I don't think the little old animal guy was going to get that from him. By any stretch. You know what I'm trying to say, Bruce?
I know what you're trying to say, Larry.
Yeah.
Hey, when are you going to stop wussing out and come out in the woods with me and Billy? You wussed out at Chautauqua this year.
Well, I had a migraine headache. Usually that's not good for Bigfoot hunting. But I love to go. I love to go in the woods. No lights. Just kind of feel your way through the woods. Find a place to park yourself. And then open up your pack and get that family pack, extra crispy out.
Yep.
and then you just wait for them to show up and ask them if they want a Coke or a beer or whatever, and just hang out and see what the world's all about in their eyes.
Oh, there you go.
That's what we should do.
Well, Larry, I have to give you kudos because at least you're willing to share, unlike Billy, who brings the fiddle faddle out but never breaks it open ever and never shares it.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding. And the thing is, before you go out, he'll pull it out of his pack, a box of fiddle faddle. He'll shake it and say, "Oh, I got the fiddle faddle," but you'll never see it the whole night.
You know, there are certain North American tribes that instantly they would tie you to a tree and do a neutering if you did something like that. Don't ask me which tribes, but it's
I'll
true.
stay away from all Native Americans just to be safe.
Oh God.
Well, we had fun, Larry. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime.
And
don't forget about my show, Thursday nights, 10 p.m., Wild World.
Yep.
This week's guest, Lori Biagini, a brand new Canadian music artist. She's got a fabulous CD out. We're going to talk to her and listen to some music. So it should be an outstanding show.
Yeah, if anybody wants the link to Larry's show, it's actually on the Sasquatch Watch Radio page.
Oh, God love you.
Yeah, so we put the link right on this show page. That way they can just go there and click on it.
Well, we're doing outstanding again. We were out of commission for about 6 months, but we're back and rolling, and we've got some fantastic shows coming up in the next few weeks.
That'll be great.
One of the shows, Bruce, we're going to be interviewing the ghost of Colonel Sanders.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
I will.
Yeah.
Just, make sure you ask them about the family pack.
I will. I just don't like their green beans that much, though, I have to say. I love the coleslaw.
They don't have the green beans up here.
Oh, well, you ain't missing nothing. that's
I'll make sure. My wife loves green beans, so I'll make sure if she does find one, I'll tell her not to have it.
No, don't. Because they taste like metal, so. And not heavy metal either.
I pretty much try to stay away from the green beans.
Oh, that's right. You're like a big cat.
They're not carrying original recipe ribeye yet, so.
Yeah, Bruce is like the big cat that's been declawed and retired from the circus. Because he just doesn't have it anymore. Though Bruce still does, I'm telling you.
Oh, thanks for the vote of confidence there.
Warm greetings. Oh, my pleasure. I'm telling you.
It was great having you on the show. It was like one step above dead air. But
yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Well, we put a little fact in amongst all the whatever. I did poor Abe's show, the MNBRT, and he hired me he didn't hire me, he didn't pay me nothing. He gives stuff away out of his living room.
Yeah, he does.
For his questions.
Yeah, do they happen to be mushrooms?
No. But one guy come on who's a serious Sasquatch researcher. He got so frustrated. He said, "I've never been on a Bigfoot show like this one before." Well, lucky you. I've just left the field. I was tracking them. I've come in to do this show. I'm thinking, yeah, right.
Yeah, just don't ask. Just don't ask for the surprise bag. You'll be good.
Oh, I know. Yeah, he was kind of. He felt bad because I caught him on it. I said, "You're just pulling stuff out of your living room to give away to these poor folks." and the main winner was Henry May from Mississippi. I think he was cheating.
He probably was, because, whenever he goes to these auctions at these conferences, he doesn't give anybody a chance to buy anything. He buys it all up.
Really?
Yeah.
That gives me an idea. We could bag up some tiger dung and label it. How would anybody know?
That's right.
I've just killed all my credibility I ever had tonight.
That's okay, Larry. You didn't sacrifice much.
Oh, that's a point for Bruce.
Yeah. You have to get him back.
Oh,
we
I
can get him
will.
back. You can get me the whole show.
No, gosh, I'm hungry. I want to go get some KFC. I knew I'd feel this way after the show.
That's right.
Yeah, maybe I'll track one in.
Thanks for being on the show, Larry. We appreciate it.
I'm really sorry for all I've done tonight.
No, it was fun.
Who would be your guest next week?
I don't know. We usually pick them out during the weekend.
I see.
So I've asked a couple people, just waiting on responses.
Gotcha. Well, I'll be waiting for my phone to ring again.
All right.
Yeah, you just wait by that phone, Larry.
I'll be waiting. I will be. I'll be disappointed. They don't love me anymore. All right, guys.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Remember to join us again next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate every one of our listeners. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.